All right, folks. And I left off with FDR's inaugural address. Many of the members of Roosevelt's administration, including FDR himself, were veterans of the economic mobilization of World War I and drew upon their experiences to combat the new situation. The first New Deal agencies, indeed, bore strong resemblance to wartime agencies, and many had the term emergency in their titles, such as the Federal Emergency Relief Administration and the National Emergency Council. In his first important official act, Roosevelt proclaimed a national bank holiday on the basis of the 1917 Trading with the Enemy Act, itself a wartime delegation of power. New Deal historian William E. Leuchtenberg, Leuchtenburg, writes, when he sent his banking bill to Congress, the House received it with much the same ardor as it was greeted as it had greeted Woodrow Wilson's war legislation. Speaker Rainey said the situation reminded him of the late war when on both sides of this chamber, the Great War, measures suggested by the administration were supported with practical unanimity. Today we are engaged in another war, more serious even in its character and presenting greater dangers to the Republic. After only 38 minutes debate, the House passed the administration's banking bill, sight unseen. Well, wasn't the Fed charter, wasn't one of its premises that it would not see depressions or inflations, hyperinflations? Well, we had a depression then, and we've had some in between. And now we're in hyperinflation. I guess they're not meeting their charter. But then again, those who have ever spoken about the Federal Reserve have met with a bullet in their head. Example, Lincoln and Kennedy. No, I do not wish to die. I would give willingly for my country. But who is my country now? I don't know. I know the people, everybody that is American is my country. The Trading with the Enemy Act had, however, been specifically designed by its originators to meet only wartime exigencies. By employing it to meet the demands of the Depression, Roosevelt greatly extended the concept of emergencies to which expansion of executive powers might be applied, and in so doing he established a pattern that was followed frequently. In time of crisis, the President should utilize any statutory authority readily at hand, regardless of its original purposes, with the firm expectation of ex post facto congressional concurrence. Beginning with FDR, then, extensive use of delegated powers exercised under an aura of crisis has become a dominant aspect of presidency. Concomitant with this development has been a demeaning of the significance of emergency. It became a term used to evoke public and congressional approbation, often bearing little actual relation to events. Roosevelt's brain truster, Rexford G. Tugwell, has described the manner in which Roosevelt used declarations of different degrees of emergencies. The limited emergency was a creature of Roosevelt's imagination, used to make it seem that he was doing less than he was. He did not want to create any more furor than was necessary. The qualifying adjective had no limiting force. It was purely for public effect. But the finding that an emergency existed opened a whole armory of powers to the commander-in-chief, far more than Wilson had had. Let me check my time, please. I'm all right. Thank you. Roosevelt and his successor Harry S. Truman invoked formal states of emergency to justify extensive delegations of authority during actual times of war. The Korean War, however, by the fact of its never having been officially declared a war as such by Congress, further diluted the concept of what constituted circumstances sufficiently critical to warrant the delegation of extraordinary authority to the President. At the end of the Korean War, moreover, the official state of emergency was not terminated. It is not yet terminated. This may be primarily attributed to the continuance of the Cold War atmosphere, which, until recent years, made the imminent threat of hostilities as an accepted fact of everyday life. With emergency the normal state of affairs. Well, we got terror now. You can never kill terror because everybody's going to have terror at some point in their life. Terror, 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 terror. All right. Let me get my head out of there and get back onto track here. All right. In this, what is, for all practical purposes, permanent state of emergency? Presidents have exercised numerous powers, most notably under the Trading with the Enemy Act, legitimated by that ongoing state of national emergency. Hundreds of others have lain fallow, there to be exercised at any time, requiring only an order from the President. Besides the 1933 one and the Korean War emergencies two other states of declared national emergency remain in existence. On March 23, 1970, confronted by a strike of Postal Service employees, President Nixon declared a national emergency. 3. The following year, on August 15, 1971, Nixon proclaimed another emergency. 4. Under which he imposed stringent import controls in order to meet an international monetary crisis. Because of its general language, however, that proclamation could serve as sufficient authority to use a substantial proportion of all the emergency statutes now on the books. Where do they find these people to write this? Over the course of at least the last 40 years, then, presidents have had available an enormous, seemingly expanding and never-ending range of emergency powers. Indeed, at their fullest extent and during the height of a crisis, these prerogative powers appear to be virtually unlimited, confirming Locke's perception. Because Congress and the public are unaware of the extent of emergency powers, there has never been any notable congressional or public objection made to this state of affairs, nor have the courts imposed significant limitations. During the New Deal, the Supreme Court initially struck down much of Roosevelt's emergency economic legislation. Schnechter, S-C-H-E-C-T-E-R versus United States, 295, U.S. 495. However, political pressures, a change in personnel, and presidential threats of court packing soon altered this course of decisions. NLRB versus Jones and Lawlin, Steel Corporation, 301 U.S. 1. Since 1987, okay, I don't know why things just flickered for me. Since 1987, the court has been extremely reluctant to invalidate any congressional delegation of economic powers to the president. It appears that this will not change in the foreseeable future. And I'm going to close this one off at that and follow up in the next one so I don't get in the middle of a paragraph.